Last week, we celebrated a huge milestone, the launch of the Centennial World Podcast Network. And we couldn't have done it without Tempus One, our exclusive drinks partner for this new era of the brand. Tempus One's Prosecco Spritzers are the perfect ready-to-drink pick. Whether you're celebrating, going out on a night with friends, or even catching up at some chilled after-work drinks. With a lineup of flavors that look just as good as they taste, they're not just fruity and refreshing. They are the best aesthetic addition to any event. A massive thank you to Tempus One for keeping the support going and sponsoring this week's episode of Infinite Scroll. If you haven't tried Tempus One yet, consider this your sign, and as always, drink responsibly. Whether social media is your job, you post casually, or simply lurk on various platforms, we all interact with quote-unquote viral content. For those of us who work in the industry, we chase virality. And for those of us who consume content online, we often stumble across content that we deem as viral. But in 2025, is virality even real anymore? What one of us deems as viral, another person may have never seen online. It's safe to say that over the past decade, the digital landscape has experienced a seismic shift. It's no longer good enough for creators and other social media professionals to have steady audience and social growth. Brands, creators, and publishers, for instance, are now expected to manufacture viral moments consistently. And that's because virality is largely seen as the path to success. For brand accounts online, it's often considered the answer to brand awareness, the answer to social growth, the answer to all PR and marketing, the answer to generating sales. And for creators, it's similar. Virality kicks off a career, but can also sustain it. Going viral introduces creators to new audiences, allowing them to grow their following consistently. In an era where growth and engagement are paramount for sustainability, it's no surprise why virality has become the pursuit. We have seen how much success can come off the back of a truly viral piece of content. Take Brittany Broski, for example. She managed to parlay her viral kombucha taste test moment into a fully fledged influencer career. Over the past 5 years or so, she has launched a podcast, an interview show, appeared on red carpets, and even dipped her toe into music. That said, Brittany Broski, along with many others, have managed to use virality as a stepping stone to influencerdom. But while virality may have been one of the answers to our problems at some point, times have changed, and they've changed fast. This is an exploration into the myth of virality, how and why online culture has evolved so much over the past decade, bringing us to a place in 2025 where quote-unquote virality is a pursuit not worth the chase. From Centennial World, I'm Lauren Meisner, and this is Infinite Scroll, a podcast about internet culture, the creator economy, and how social media is shaping Gen Z. Welcome back to Infinite Scroll, everyone. Okay, so I have been doing these keynote speeches on the quote-unquote myth of virality across Sydney and Melbourne, and we decided to build this out into a full-fledged episode for you guys. So that is where this is pulled from. Obviously, we've built it out into a more consumer-focused episode or content, as opposed to industry focused. But yes, this is a little taste of what you get from me when we do consulting, presentations, public speaking. So before I get into it, as always, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Please sign up to our newsletter, also called Infinite Scroll. On Fridays, we round up the 5 biggest think pieces on the internet from that week. And we are still trying to get to 1,000 Spotify reviews, so please star rate us on Spotify. To put it frankly, the concept of virality doesn't really exist anymore, at least not in the way that it used to. Over the past several years, internet historians and tech journalists have been documenting the impact of viral content and how the concept of virality itself is changing. Many have come to the conclusion that the concept of virality has been watered down significantly. What we have seen is that virality now, in 2025, will rarely produce a monolithic cut-through that we hope for. It's difficult to measure, it's unpredictable and fleeting, and it has become even more challenging to control the narrative and outcomes around viral content. As Taylor Lorenz writes for the Washington Post, quote, "The volume of content being churned out every day has skyrocketed. The life cycle of each piece of media has grown shorter, and social media platforms continue to inflate public metrics, devaluing previously impressive online stats. All of these factors have rendered the term viral nearly meaningless, say experts, and have led to a condition we call viralflation." The phenomenon of viralflation has made it difficult for brands, creators, and users alike to tell what is actually viral. Aside from the factors that Lorenz mentioned, another key aspect behind viralflation is how fragmented the digital landscape has become. And this is largely because of the death of monoculture. Of course, we have discussed monoculture and its decline before on this podcast. But as a brief refresher, the term monoculture essentially refers to the monolithic version of pop culture that was dictated by charts, award shows, and publications. It was how the world experienced pop culture for decades. During this time, sharing of online content, once there eventually was online content, was largely manual, and there was a bigger discrepancy between viral content and everything else. Thinking back to the 2000s and early 2010s, before algorithms really took over, there were multiple viral moments that pretty much everyone would know. Think specific moments like Friday by Rebecca Black, the Grumpy Cat meme, or videos like David After Dentist and Charlie Bit My Finger. Millennials even had phenomena like Salad Fingers, an animated web series centering around a character with the same name who was a slender, green creature who frequently talked about his love of rusty spoons. This series debuted on Newgrounds, an entertainment platform that hosted user-generated content spanning categories including games, movies, audio, and art. Salad Fingers was released on YouTube 1 year later, in 2005. Salad Fingers was definitely niche at first, originating in a specific corner of the internet. As Tom Waite put it for Dazed, quote, "For many, the animated series served as an introduction to the weird side of the internet, where films that wouldn't fly on mainstream channels were allowed to flourish via sites such as Newgrounds and YouTube." But even so, it managed to break through the mass amounts of users. Alex Hearn for The Guardian in 2015 even described the series as, quote, "one of the first Flash animations that went fully viral, inhabiting normal pop culture as well as the weird internet one." This was largely unprecedented for digital culture, and especially for content that was considered, quote-unquote, weird. And even though online culture has become increasingly intertwined with the mainstream, some of the most popular weird content today would not be elevated in the same way, largely because of the sheer amount of weird content that is out there. Having said that, there definitely are still viral moments and universal reference points online. Skibbity Toilet is one such example. But these moments are becoming few and far between and happen less frequently than you might think. And that's because our experiences online have become increasingly siloed. A fragmented internet means that everyone's essentially on their own side of the internet, whether that be book talk, water talk, food talk, or even more niche communities like Dongwon Jinlong's industrial-grade glycine. If you know, you know. As academics Jessica Maddox and Fiona Gill explain, quote, "Sides of TikTok is a platform vernacular created and adopted by users to describe their experiences engaging with algorithmically curated similar types of content, as well as the subsequent collectives forming around them." This really took off in 2020. If you cast your mind back to the early days of COVID-19, when many new users joined the platform, there was a significant divide between what people defined as straight and alt TikTok. Straight TikTok was considered to be the home of TikTok dances and arguably cringy lip syncs. For a long time, creator collectives like the Hype House and the Sway House were considered the faces of this side of TikTok. By contrast, alt TikTok, which was short for alternative TikTok, typically included videos referencing specific memes and audios. When this divide was at its peak, sound circulated that encouraged users to check which side of the internet they were on by seeing if they recognized various audios. This was often about trolling straight TikTok users and gatekeeping the content coming out of alt TikTok. Of course, there was and is far more to straight and alt TikTok. But what this divide shows us is just how personalized and passive online content consumption has become. As Crystal Andrews writes for Zfeed, quote, "Digital platforms have made entertainment and culture very personalized, driven by algorithms that know you better than you know yourself. Social media has become entertainment where you can watch the daily ins and outs of a girl on the other side of the world like a tiny reality TV show that only you and 4,000 others know about." With algorithm-driven platforms, we no longer have to open browsers and type in the names of blogs, websites, or publishers anymore to read their latest content. We don't even open social media and go to our following or subscription tabs. Content is virtually presented to us on a silver platter. It doesn't have to be viral, it doesn't even have to be popular. It just has to fit our algorithmic profile. And Gen Z and Gen Alpha love this. Well, they might not love it, but they also don't know anything different. New research by Deloitte in the US found that 60% of Gen Z respondents prefer user-generated content because this content is served to them by recommendation pages and algorithms. In other words, they don't have to spend time searching for the content themselves, and they clearly don't want to. Ultimately, this reliance on algorithmic recommendations has resulted in a more divided internet with less opportunity for content to have that monolithic cut through. It has also made it extremely difficult to measure virality. This, I'm sure, comes as no surprise. We've all had conversations with friends where we reference something quote-unquote viral and they have no idea what we're talking about. And that leads us to another reason why virality is difficult to measure. Because it's become a catch-all term to mean something that everyone's talking about, but only everyone who's on my corner of the internet. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. The emergence of different corners of the internet and the democratization of virality within these spaces have undoubtedly allowed for a more diverse creator landscape. But there is a downside. As Taylor Lorenz continues for the Washington Post, quote, "Because we no longer have any shared sense of virality, it makes it easier for people who don't understand the mechanics of the internet to fall for fake viral trends. As a result, various brands have attempted to manufacture viral buzz over products, which were not actually viral. The best example of this is the Athenos Feta soup saga. We have discussed this before on the podcast, but for those who don't remember, in November 2023, some major food influencers started posting about an allegedly viral feta and butternut squash soup. Emily Mariko was one such creator. This caught the attention of social media consultant Rachel Carton. When Carton looked into this quote-unquote viral recipe, she found that at the time, there were only 19 posts on Instagram and 14 posts on TikTok. Clearly not viral. Carton ultimately came to the conclusion that Athenos Feta had commissioned influencers to make the soup seem like a thing, when really it wasn't. After some digging, Carton claimed that the first post about the feta and butternut squash soup was a reel by @GrilledCheese's Social, an influencer named Mackenzie Smith with over 700,000 Instagram followers. This post was also in partnership with Athenos Feta. Carton suggested that the brand chose Smith for authenticity, pointing to her previous success in popularizing the tomato feta pasta in 2021. So, when you have creators telling their millions of followers that something with 14 posts is viral, you can see how hard it's become to measure quote-unquote virality. Just because people are calling something viral doesn't mean it actually is. It could be popular on their corner of the internet, or it could be a completely manufactured moment like the Athenos Feta saga. In some ways, social media platforms have even given these manufactured viral moments a stamp of approval. In recent years, we have seen the rise of vanity metrics within online content. Vanity metrics are typically considered impressive data points, but often don't convert into a real return on investment. In this context, it may mean that a brand has a video that goes viral but fails to convert into sales, brand awareness, or loyalty. Platforms feed into this by inflating views and engagement. Many social media professionals believe that this is particularly true of TikTok. While it's fair to assume that some brands boost their content on social media platforms to meet specific targets, that doesn't mean that social media users don't notice and that their content is actually viral. For years, there has been discussion on Reddit about whether TikTok, specifically, inflates views. For example, one user took to the r/TikTok gossip subreddit in 2022 saying, quote, "It seems like TikTok is inflating its views/likes/follower numbers." Soon, Reddit users started speculating in the comments about why it benefits the platform and creators and what tipped them off. As one user wrote, quote, "Comment counts are inflated almost every single video. Next time you're on TikTok and you scroll to a new video, take note of the number of comments before loading them. them. Then open the comments, and the number of comments almost always goes significantly down. Could be the result of comments getting filtered or censored, but I don't know. The user continues by pointing to bots as potentially one of the reasons why these views and engagement are inflated on TikTok. Of course, this topic frequently comes up online with the discourse around the dead internet theory, a belief that most content online is generated by AI bots instead of human beings. The Reddit user continues, quote, "I'm unsure if the problem with bots on TikTok comes from the company themselves or from creators who buy views/comments. I'd have to think it's likely both. TikTok is surely allowing it. It's so clear that a huge amount of bots are on the app, liking random comments and videos to make people think their content is being seen." With TikTok's algorithm and analytics being relatively secretive and also confusing to the average social media user, many people have gone on to believe that various TikTok-first creators' virality is manufactured by the app. Over the years, Bella Poarch has repeatedly faced such allegations. For those unfamiliar with Bella Poarch, she found viral fame in mid-2020 for her quirky rendition of Millie B's M to the B. This video became the most liked video on TikTok within a matter of weeks, and still holds that title, although the video of Leah Halton lip-syncing in her car is a contender to take that spot. Known for her childlike facial expressions while lip-syncing, Bella seemingly captivated millions who just couldn't look away. She has since gone on to launch a music career. Though Bella has been objectively successful, users question the legitimacy of her virality. For instance, one TikTok user took to the platform last year, writing, quote, "Tell me why Bella Poarch gets millions of views, but nobody talks about her. Her comment sections are 99% bots. Is she even real, or is it just a corporation pumping money out of her?" We are likely never going to know the mechanics of Bella Poarch's fame, but we do know, as I alluded to earlier, that platforms inflate views. Many experts have argued that a view barely counts as a view these days. And what I mean by that is that a view may be counted even if a user barely engages with the video. In a recent edition of User Mag, Taylor Lorenz explains that it was Facebook that lowered the threshold for what could be considered a view. As she explains, quote, "According to a lawsuit filed against Facebook in California federal court in 2016, viewership metrics on some videos had been artificially increased by up to 900%. In 2019, Facebook settled the claim for $40 million. She continues by noting that TikTok took this to an entirely new level, where, quote, "A view on TikTok is simply an impression," meaning the video was served to a user for at least a fraction of a second on screen. According to the company, TikTok also counts each loop of a video as a view, allowing videos to rake in massive view counts. Lorenz characterizes the current digital landscape as an arms race over which platform can inflate views the most. And she is probably right. YouTube has recently announced that it is changing how YouTube Shorts views are counted. Historically, views on YouTube Shorts were counted after a video was watched for a number of seconds. But now, Shorts views will also include the number of times a video automatically plays or replays. This, in turn, will increase the number of views dramatically. Quote, "With this update, YouTube Shorts will now align its metrics with those of TikTok and Instagram Reels, both of which track the number of times your video starts or replays. YouTube notes that creators will now be able to better understand how their short-form videos are performing across multiple platforms." Aisha Malik writes for Fast Company. While updates like this might incentivize creators to post on the platform and almost provide a sense of legitimacy to content, it is a move that also completely dilutes what it means to go viral. Another example of a manufactured viral moment, while not as egregious as the Feta soup saga, was when the term Cheugy gained popularity online. The term entered the popular vernacular in 2021. It was allegedly coined by 23-year-old software developer Gabby Rassin in 2013, but started going viral in a TikTok posted by Hallie Kane on March 30th, 2021. In her TikTok, Hallie nominates Cheugy as the word to describe, quote, "the type of person who gets married at 20. Or has, quote, millennial girl boss energy." Know Your Meme at the time described Cheugy as the, quote, intersection of millennial girl boss and out of style cringe. The New York Times pointed out that it is different from basic, which alludes to conformism or people who are generic in their tastes. They suggested that Cheugy is not necessarily a negative descriptor, but just refers broadly to someone who tries too hard or is out of date. Soon, the conversation online became about what is and what isn't Cheugy, virality, with the likes of Harry Potter, Live, Laugh, Love signs, and Disney adults falling into the former. What was strange about this conversation was that it was predominantly millennials engaging in it and using the word. Ironically, many of them believed that Cheugy was a term Gen Z was using to describe them, where they seemingly were trying to stay up to date with the latest slang. But when you asked Gen Z what Cheugy was and whether they used the word, most would have been unfamiliar with it. Now, the point here is not to hate on millennials. I'm a millennial myself, or issue an opinion on what is or isn't Cheugy. But instead, it's to show another instance of supposed virality among Gen Z, when this actually wasn't the case at all. While Cheugy had a moment of popularity online, and some may even say virality, the context was entirely lost on many social media users. In turn, no one understood who was using the term, let alone why. And that brings us to my next point. The struggle to measure virality is heightened by the fact that these moments have become completely unpredictable and fleeting. Despite what social media gurus and experts may tell us, there is no surefire way to go viral. There are definitely things you can do that may help your chances, but virality is so unpredictable on such a big and fragmented internet. With that, the speed at which the trend cycle now moves is unlike anything we've seen before. If you don't catch a viral trend within the first 48 hours, we've moved on. Because of this, there's not a lot of recognition that comes with virality now, as we can all tell by the Athenos Feta saga. This, in turn, has made it difficult to trace the origins of a viral piece of content. Our passive consumption habits mean we scroll without a lot of thought as to the brand or creator behind posting this content. And even when we do obtain that recognition, it's fleeting, again, because of the pace of the trend cycle. By this point, I think we've established that the internet is extremely fragmented. But this is where I should make a quick caveat. There can be specific viral moments that cross niches online. But with the downfall of monoculture, there will probably never be one viral moment that the whole internet will consider viral again. And while you may hope to be one of the few brands that can cultivate one of these moments, it does come with risk. Anytime we post anything online, we essentially lose control of the narrative around that piece of content, especially if it goes viral. We can't control how other people will interpret it or misinterpret it, as the internet so often does. And unlike other forms of publishing, when it comes to posting on social media, we can't control how others will repurpose this content either. Recently, we have seen an uptick in brands sharing UGC content from within the workplace. This may be employees jumping on trends, pranking their boss, or even time-stamping their tasks to share their average day on the job. While there's no denying that this may be entertaining and useful for many social media users curious about the workforce, issues arise when we consider how much of this content can be taken out of context, putting brands and their employees at risk. Now, we did cover this on Mini Scroll at the time, but a case in point is the Aussie brand TBH Skincare, when they were reposted by Andrew Tate on Twitter. As a reminder, the TBH Skincare employees made a video recreating the boots and a slicked back bun trend. In the video, they chanted phrases like Gen Z boss and a mini, itty bitty titties and a bob, new Frank Green, and a sneaky link. While some users dismissed the video as a millennial core, others joked that, quote, marketing degrees should be more expensive. However, the criticism took a darker turn when the video circulated on Twitter, where thousands of men began targeting the women involved. Andrew Tate, one of the most dangerous men on this side of the internet, saw it and posted it with the caption, quote, if you do not escape the matrix, women like this will be your boss, along with other misogynistic claims. TBH handled this really well. They're a small brand, so they got in front of it immediately. And I know the founder said that the brand did see an increase in sales from this. But at what cost? Her face and the faces of her employees are now forever on Andrew Tate's Twitter, calling them names and exposing them to his toxic manosphere followers. That's a dangerous place to be. Now, this is an extreme case, but it's an example of how little control we actually have around our content and our narrative when something picks up traction, and how scary the consequences of that can be. Now, all of what we just covered isn't necessarily to minimize the power of going viral. As anyone who listens to this podcast knows, there are countless case studies of creators, brands, and publishers who have found immense success from virality. But gone are the days when the creator of a viral piece of content found themselves on Ellen. Viralflation and the emergence of an increasingly fragmented internet have given us a new online ecosystem where quote-unquote viral content doesn't mean what it used to mean. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it does require a more in-depth level of social media literacy to sift through the bullshit when attempting to create or analyze quote-unquote viral content. So, if chasing virality isn't the key to success online anymore, what should you do instead? We charge for that. Infinite Scroll is a podcast produced, presented, and co-written by me, Lauren Meisner, for Centennial World. This episode was researched and co-written by Annabelle Ben-David. Editing is by Danny Fennick. For the last time, thank you, Danny, for all your hard work with us this year. You really came through with the deep dives. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.